Welcome back everyone, Oz here, and today I've got some r/OhNoConsequences. As per usual, I'll be reading you the post, giving you my opinions, and I hope you do the same down in the comments below. And without further ado, let's jump right into it. Cross-posted from r/Am I the asshole? Would I be the asshole? Public. Am I the asshole for refusing to let my friend crash at my place after he roasted my apartment in front of everyone? Alright, this might sound petty, but I feel like I was justified. I, 26 male, have a small one-bedroom apartment. It's not fancy, but it's clean. It's mine. And I worked my ass off to afford it. Like, IKEA everything. But I got a gaming setup I love, and a little fake plant that's absolutely thriving. Last weekend, I had a few friends over for pizza and chill. Nothing wild. My friend Kyle, 27 male, who's been kinda couch surfing lately, shows up and immediately starts roasting my place. Like he walks in and goes, "Damn bro, is this a studio or a jail cell?" Everyone laughs, I brush it off. Then he goes, "Yo, where's your dining table? You just eat off your lap like a raccoon?" Again, laughs. I joke back like, better than eating off someone else's couch, man. And everyone laughs again. But he doesn't stop. He jokes about my sad little gamer chair, my bare fridge, and even says my bathroom looks like it's been through something traumatic. It was funny for like 5 seconds, then it got annoying. Then it got rude. Fast forward to this week. He texts me, saying that he got kicked from the place he was staying, and asks if he can crash on my couch for a few nights. I literally responded, "I thought my apartment was too sad for you, man." Now he's calling me petty. A few mutuals said I should have let it slide because he's going through a lot. Like, I feel for him, but like, why would I let someone stay in a place they just spent an hour clowning? So yeah, am I the asshole for not letting my buddy crash at my place after he roasted it in front of everyone? Too long didn't read, friend made fun of my apartment all night during a hangout. A few days later, he asks if he can crash on my couch. I said no. Now he says I'm being petty. Am I the asshole? User Dragon Bidness managed to snag the update. Update. Appreciate all the comments. Honestly, didn't expect this to blow up a little, so mini update. Kyle saw the post. Yep. A mutual sent it to him. Apparently the phrase, "sad little gamer chair," really tipped him off. He texted me something like, "Lamau, real mature bro, air out your feelings on Reddit," and then left the group chat we're in. So, that's fun. One of my same friends who said I was being petty later texted me like, "Okay, yeah, Kyle was out of line." Apparently, Kyle's been doing this kind of stuff to other people too, cracking jokes that go too far and acting like it's always just a bit. Which, yeah, exactly. Bonus update. I picked up a folding table from this local guy who had 5 in his basement for some reason. It's ugly, but it does the job. If someone makes another raccoon comment, I'm flipping it dramatically. So yeah, still chilling in my apartment, still got my IKEA shelves and my $9 fake plant that's somehow the healthiest thing in my life right now. Kyle's not staying here, but I hope he figures his stuff out. Just not on my couch. Thanks again, Reddit. Y'all cracked me up and also made me feel way less crazy. Kyle's the kind of guy who just definitely makes his comments out of jealousy. OP is totally in the right for being like, "You can't just spend 2 hours trashing and clowning on my place and then ask to sleep on my couch, dude. That's incredibly disrespectful and entitled." Kyle might claim he's being petty, but at the same time, where's your apartment, Kyle? You're gonna trash on other people's apartments because they're still trying to get by and figure out what furniture to put in when you don't even have an apartment. Furniture is fucking expensive. I promise this is related, but Kyle has the same mindset of a very specific kind of person within the car community. This is someone who either Ubered to the car meet or just simply drives some like 1996 Honda Civic. Nothing wrong with that, but the problem is the attitude. They'll go up to someone who has a 340i BMW and go, "Huh, only a 340i? Why not an M3? Or they'll go up to a Dodge Challenger and go, "Huh, only an SRT? Why not a Hellcat?" And if they see a Hellcat, "Really? Only a Hellcat? Why not a Demon? You could show up with a fully loaded Corvette and they would look you in the eyes and be, "You know, a Bentley is nicer, right?" Doesn't matter what you drive, they're going to find something to nitpick at it and just make you feel low as they get back into their 1996 Honda Civic and drive off. Or Uber back home. That's the kind of person Kyle is. It's just jealousy. Jealousy makes you overly criticize someone else's achievements or goals just to bring them down when you yourself aren't even there yet. It's like reverse jonesing, but somehow worse. I think. I don't know, that analogy might be kind of getting away from me there. But still, general point is, Kyle's a jealous bastard. OP's totally in the right not to let Kyle sleep on his couch after he spent way too fucking long just trashing on his place. I mean, in terms of putting it into like a car, which just kind of keeping with the car analogy, if I like pick someone up in my car and they're like, oh, wow, really, dude, this is what you drive? I'm not gonna want to fucking drive them around anymore. It's like, okay, dude, thanks, I guess. You can Uber to the airport next time. Cross-posted from r/am I the asshole. Am I the asshole for siding with my husband and not with my kids? Okay, I know the title sounds bad, but for some context, I, 36 female, have twins with my ex, 42 male, a girl Olivia and a boy Enzo, who are now 16 years old. My ex is one hell of an asshole. We ended our relationship because he had cheated on me while I was pregnant, and not happy with that, he never paid child support and was absent from their lives most of the time, only coming back once or twice during the year to play the fun dad. But, well, of course, his absence has affected my kids a lot. Anyway, when Olivia and Enzo were a year old, I reconnected with an ex from high school, Ian, 36 male, and we started dating. The main reason we had broken up is that I wanted kids in the future and he wasn't sure. And since 2 seemed more than enough for me, that problem was out of the way. Ian wasn't involved at first with Olivia and Enzo, but after we moved in together over 2 years later, he began to help me with them without me having to ask, which I was really grateful for, and they eventually formed a bond. We got married, and Olivia and Enzo called Ian Dad for as long as I can remember, although they always knew he wasn't their biological father. Ian and I make the same amount of money, and we live in a house I inherited from my father, and Ian only earns a bit less than me. There's not a big difference. With time, my ex went from showing up once or twice a year to not showing up at all for a couple of years, which is when their bond became even stronger, and Ian told me he wanted to adopt them because he saw them as his own kids, and he truly felt like their father. However, that never actually happened because it was a legal mess in our country we didn't want to get into. Now, last year, and out of the blue, my ex showed up again, claiming to be a different man now and wanting to rekindle their relationship. They fell for his act despite Ian and I warning them about not trusting him completely, which is okay, I guess. They have a right to want a relationship with him. The problem started when they began to ignore Ian. It's like they were treating him like a replacement they no longer needed. And of course, my husband noticed this. One night it escalated because they were having a really dumb fight that started because Enzo had not cleaned the kitchen after cooking. And we have this important rule in the house that pretty much means that each one is usually responsible for cleaning their own mess. And, well, Ian just went inside their room to tell him he needed to clean. And Enzo began to yell at him. Olivia joined in and they were telling him how exhausted they were about Ian treating them as if he were their real father. That they had a father, and he shouldn't act like one just because he didn't have kids of their own. I remember Ian just left the house that night without saying a word, and I told Olivia and Enzo they had made the wrong choice treating Ian like this. And when their real dad leaves again, I didn't want to see them crawling back to the one who actually took care of them and was always there. Ian came back the next day, and he was incredibly upset. I did my best to comfort him, and he told me that he felt disrespected, and there was no coming back from this. It was hard to hear, but I told him that if he no longer wanted to be involved in the twins' lives, I wouldn't be angry at him. He cried a lot that night, and cried himself to sleep during those next days. It was awful to see him like this, and I couldn't do anything but try to comfort him. I tried to talk to my kids to tell them they really needed to apologize, but they refused, completely, saying they had a dad and didn't need them, and it made me question what kind of kids I was raising. As predicted, from one day to the other, left the city and never called Olivia or Enzo again. When they realized what had happened, they were devastated. I was there for them, but it shocked me how they wanted to pretend everything was okay between them and Ian, calling him dad again. Ian simply told them he was not their dad, and would clearly never be. This has been going on for a while, They were thinking Ian would change his mind eventually and forgive them, but that has not happened. As a last card, they came to me and told me to speak to Ian, and I told them we had talked many times, and it was clear Ian would no longer be involved in their lives, which is what they wanted anyway. So I don't know what the problem was. They were shocked with my response and kept trying to convince me, but I made it clear that my husband is a human with feelings, not a wallet and a replacement for the pathetic man they like to call real dad. And that if they thought they could disrespect people that care for them without any consequence, then they were very, very wrong. I told them there was no going back from this, that things would not be the same and they had themselves to blame for that. They shouldn't have taken for granted a person that was always there for them. They went crying to my mom after that, and she told me she understood why I was upset with them but couldn't side with my husband in this, that they are kids that made a mistake, a second chance, and I should try to solve things. And to be honest, I don't think I can. I love my kids and they will always be my priority, and this has not changed my love for them, but I also love my husband, and he's such a great man who stepped up when he didn't have an obligation and was such a support for me and the kids. He was the father they never had for so long, and even if I try, I don't think I'm even close to know the amount of pain that can cause you to have the kids that you raised as your own for years to tell you you're not their real dad and to treat you as literal trash. As much as I want them to make up, I know my husband is hurt, and they caused that over what? A man they had seen barely like 7 times in their whole life? Ian is now convinced that Enzo and Olivia don't love him and only saw him as a replacement. And he thinks that if their real dad ever shows up again, they would treat him like crap again. And, well, although I don't think my kids would do that, I know he has every right to feel that way. And if Ian no longer feels comfortable involved in my kid's life, then I don't think I can contradict him. They just broke the relationship. Ian is usually a pretty reasonable man, and he has thought a lot about this. So I know that he's sure about his choice. I know he's been crushed with this. And now, he wants us to have a kid. But I have told him no because I believe he just wants to replace Olivia and Enzo. Despite respecting my husband's decision, I don't want my kids to lose the man they've seen as their father ever since they can remember. I know it's gonna crush them, and it will affect them even more in the future. And sometimes I wonder if I should listen to my mom and try to talk Ian into trying to repair their relationship. But I don't know. Am I the asshole? Well, this is the consequence for the kids for allowing their biological father to snake his way into their lives and fill their brains full of lies about, oh, well, now that I'm back, I can be your real dad. Your real dad. Probably shit like that, and who knows what other stuff that he said that got into their heads and kind of twisted their minds. Before going further, I do want to state that this is the consequences of the kids believing their father, and they need this lesson and learn it, and Ian is 100% entitled to proceed how he feels. However, if I were to make a recommendation, I think that the mother should talk with the kids and explain what they did, why it was so hurtful, why it was unfair, and how it would feel for Ian to essentially dedicate this much time to the kids only to then be put into second fiddle position because their father randomly appeared for a few days, promised them the world, then disappeared again. In the process of that, they fell for the donor's honeyed words and treated Ian like shit. If the kids do want Ian back in their life, they have to earn it. They have to go through the steps of actually showing that they understand they made a mistake. But the thing about apologies is you don't have to accept them. So Ian is more than welcome to live his life without those kids. However, he should not be putting the pressure of a new child onto OP just because he wants to essentially replace the void that was left by Olivia and Enzo. Although at this point, because OP never specified the kids ever actually apologized, it very much could be too late at this point. Like, an apology might feel even more like an afterthought than it would previously. But still, better late than never. Because at least with apologizing now, you get the apology out there and you make it known that you do have remorse for it. But if you never apologize, then Ian is essentially just left with the idea that the kids don't care about the damage they caused. The kids are old enough to understand that they've made a mistake, and they should be old enough to take accountability for that mistake. And they also are going to probably get a pretty rough lesson on relationships at this point in life. I think in the end though, for OP, talk with Ian, see if he's interested in family counseling, talk to the kids, see if they're interested in family counseling. And then that might be honestly the best approach to mending any relationships or repairing anything, and just seeing where things go. But in the end, I'd be curious to hear everyone else's thoughts on this one. Cross-posted from r/am I the asshole. Am I the asshole for giving my wife a dirty plate to eat off of at dinner? My wife is a nurse, and she works long hours. Therefore, I handle everything in the household. She's been picking up more shifts recently because the hospital is understaffed. I am the one doing the chores, taking care of the kids, making food, and I also work. It's all me. She has one chore, and that is when she comes home, she needs to do the dishes. The kids are usually asleep by the time she gets home, so I usually make dinner for the kids and wait until she gets home to reheat the food for her. The main issue is that she has not been cleaning the dishes. I've talked to her multiple times, but nothing has changed. She gets home, eats, and goes right to bed. She always claims she's too tired after her shift to do the dishes, and when I suggest she does them in the morning, she claims there's not enough time before she needs to get to work. It is extremely frustrating to wake up and they're not done. That leads to me having to do the dishes at some point. We were talking about this again last Saturday, and she has not done the dishes since. 4 days of not doing them. And I've not done them either. I've ran out of dishes and served dinner to the kids on paper plates tonight. She got home after the kids were asleep, and I handed her a dirty plate to eat off of. I told her that she can use that to reheat the food. She was not happy, and we got into an argument. She called me a dick for handing her a dirty plate to eat off of, and that I was home, so I would have cleaned some dishes. I pointed out that this is her job, and I'm not doing it. That if she won't clean the dishes, then she can eat off of a dirty plate. She's calling me a jerk. I told my sister of the situation, and she said I'm being petty. I don't think I am. Edit, because people have continued to ask. I work in construction, 40 to 50 hours. She works in the hospital, 36 to 60. Highly dependent on what is happening at the hospital, if she picks up more shifts or not. 36 is her normal, and she, depending on the week, if she grabs 1 to 2 extra shifts. Okay, so I feel like this is going to be a little contentious in the comments. My biggest question is clarification on the timeline. Has the dishes issue been happening for several months now, and no matter how many times the husband has asked for her to do the dishes, which, God, that feels so weird to say out loud, she doesn't, and now it's reached a point where he just has to make a point to her of like, hey, I take care of the kids, I make sure they're in bed, I cook, I clean, I do everything, all I ask is for you to do the dishes, and you don't do those, so here's the result of that. Both of them have arguably incredibly exhausting jobs, and I do think it's unfair how much the husband is having to carry on his shoulders. And if we swap the roles here, where this was a wife who went to her job, worked 40 to 50 hours a week, took care of the kids, brought them to school, cooked, cleaned, did all of that. Her husband, who works 36 to 60 hours a week, all he has to do is the dishes, and he's not doing them. How would we feel if the roles were reversed like that? Because in my eyes, at minimum, there should at least be communication of, hey, I can't do the dishes when I get home. Is there something else around the house that I can pick up to take the stress off of you? I think at minimum that conversation needs to happen, because the dishes are really something where, like, I just can't be bothered when I get home, so can I do something else when I do have time? I think that's an amicable solution for both parties. The husband went to the extreme that he did to potentially make a point, as long as this has been happening for several months, and not just she misses the dishes once or twice and now dirty plate for your troubles. That would fucking suck. But if this is a habit and a trend of her constantly neglecting her duties around the house and leaving it all on her husband's shoulders, then yeah, I can understand why he would go to the lengths that he did to prove his point. But with that, what's your opinion on this? How do you feel about this situation, and would your opinion change if the roles were reversed in this situation? This one's cross-posted from r/bestof. The post was collected by JSMK, and their tagline is, "A groan that sounded like a T-Rex with a hot poker in its ass." I'll, need to find that tagline origin, good God. Originally posted February 3rd, 2023 to r/relationship advice by user throwra2can2cans. My husband, male 35, thinks I, female 32, baby-trapped him, despite the baby being planned. Please help. Originally posted in r/am I the asshole, but was removed by the moderators. My husband, male 35, and I, female 32, have been married for 7 years. He lived next door and we just clicked. It was like a fairy tale. One thing I've always thought made our marriage so strong was our friendship with each other and our trust in one another. Although now my husband seems to think otherwise. Recently, my husband found out that his friend, Jeff, male 34, has been baby-trapped. Basically, Jeff's wife, female 32, stopped taking the pill and fell pregnant a few months into their relationship, and only came clean after the wedding. Jeff came from a very conservative family, which his wife knew, and so he felt obligated to marry her after the pregnancy. Unfortunately, he also now feels obligated to stay regardless of the clearly messed up dynamic because he feels that he's made a vow and will stick by his wife and child. My husband, for some reason, has been really rattled by this. I'm currently 4 months pregnant with our first, and my husband asked me yesterday if I was trying to baby trap him. I first laughed because I honestly thought it was a joke. He was dead serious and doubled down, so I told him that we have already been married for 7 years and a baby was not going to trap him any more than he already is. My husband did not like that answer and said that there was no time limit on baby trapping, and that my intentions were clearly not pure given how I was acting, as if his concerns were a joke. He said he had trusted me in the past, but me laughing in his face gave him no reason to trust me now. I did not really know what he wanted or how I was meant to respond, and I said we should talk about this in the morning. Today, I woke up and my husband was gone. But I did have a nasty text from his brother, male 28, saying that I had forced my husband into this pregnancy. Despite it having been a joint decision, my husband is MIA and not responding to calls or texts. And now, I'm wondering how on earth to go forward. Any advice is appreciated. Update, February 3rd, 2023, the next day. Not sure if I'm allowed to post in here again, but I wanted to quickly update everyone who was kind enough to give me some advice. I didn't respond to anyone because my post was locked quite quickly, but I have read every single comment and message. I am very grateful. I realized while I was reading the comments that everyone was right. I wasn't angry enough. My husband had insulted me and our marriage in a very hurtful way, and it just didn't really register for a while. I was so confused and upset that it didn't occur to me to be angry, but I think everything just needed to sink in. In the meantime, I called my best friend, female 31, who has been such a rock in my life. She came over with some chocolate and was furious when she heard. She called her husband, male 34, to the house after I had gotten everything out of my system. He's a family lawyer and said that he would happily represent me if I wanted to go through with a divorce. This man is a saint and will drop divorce papers on Monday. My mother-in-law, female 66, showed up with my husband in the car not long after my best friend's husband arrived, and she practically dragged him to the door. My mother-in-law said that he had showed up at theirs late last night saying that he was certain that I was using the baby to trap him. Fortunately, my mother-in-law is a smart woman and absolutely tore him a new one before dragging him to the house today to apologize. My worm of a husband did not look me in the eye the entire time, but said that he was scared about becoming a dad and projected his fears onto me. He said he wasn't sure if he was ready for that kind of commitment, but he will step up. As if he's some kind of hero, I roll. I called him a coward and told him that he should stay with his parents until I'm ready to talk to him. I didn't want to say anything about the divorce papers because I didn't know what his reaction would be, but he'll find out soon enough. I also showed my mother-in-law the text from my brother-in-law, and her face was like a storm cloud. I don't know what will happen there, but I'm sure it will be bad. For now, I'm exhausted and just want to curl up and cry. My best friend has said she'll spend the night with me and we can watch silly movies. I've also made an appointment with a therapist for next week, but for now, I just need to rest. I'm exhausted and devastated that my marriage has come crumbling down. Sorry for the sad ending, everyone. Update, February 13th, 2023. About a week and a half later. Thank you to everyone for all the messages and kind pieces of advice. I've received so many requests for an update, so I thought I would quickly post and let you all know how I'm doing. Overall, everything has settled a little bit. In good news, I had a scan with the doctor, my mother-in-law attended with me, and the baby is happy and healthy. I finally found out the gender, and I'm having a little girl. I am over the moon. My mother-in-law was a gem and was so touched that I had included her in the scan. She's very excited to be a granny. On that note, my mother-in-law organized a family lunch a couple of days after the scan. I was a little reluctant, but I knew that she had good intentions and wouldn't do anything to make matters worse. When I arrived, my husband and brother-in-law were there, along with my father-in-law, male 70, and mother-in-law. It was quite awkward until my mother-in-law asked if anyone had anything to say. My brother-in-law spoke first and apologized for his awful text, saying that he was swept up in the moment and wanted to support his brother. I explained how hurtful it had been to receive such a nasty and vindictive message, and that he knew as well as anyone that my husband and I had been trying for almost a year. He hung his head and mumbled something. That was pretty much the last I heard out of him for the afternoon. Next, my mother-in-law looked quite pointedly at my husband, but he actively avoided anyone's eyes. Eventually, she spoke up and announced that my husband would no longer be welcome to stay in their house. She said that she was ashamed to have her son behave the way that he has, and that she would prefer to make space for her granddaughter rather than have some lowlife hanging around. My husband had opened up his mouth to say something earlier, but his eyes lit up when she said granddaughter. My husband had always wanted a girl, and he was suddenly in tears, saying that he was so pleased to hear the gender. My husband was suddenly wanting to touch my belly and asked if he could come home and paint the nursery. I told him in no uncertain terms that he was not welcome, that he had destroyed any trust I had in him. I told him that if I took him back, I would be worried that he would disappear at any kind of big news and that I couldn't have someone at my side who balked at the first chance. He asked me if I was telling him it was over, and I point-blank told him that I had engaged a lawyer. My husband was kind of frantic, but I felt so calm, like someone had put a blanket over me in the situation. Normally, I'm a big crier, but I felt so removed from everything. My husband said this was not fair. He had shown a little bit of panic, and suddenly, I'm throwing away our life and denying him his daughter. My father-in-law reminded him that this is the same baby he felt trapped by no more than 2 weeks ago. My husband said it was a mistake and he was stressed. But my mother-in-law asked him how he thought I felt. She asked him to imagine being so vulnerable in giving up your body to grow a family, and suddenly the one person you trust is accusing you of terrible things. He said it was a mistake, and he projected his fears onto me. I told my husband that I felt so broken when he left, because I had all of these dreams of a beautiful family which came crashing down in an instant. My husband said that he wanted those things with me, and he wanted our baby girl, but that he let the panic overwhelm him. I told him that wasn't a good enough excuse for what he put me through, and that he certainly didn't seem panicked when his mom had to drag him to my door to apologize. He didn't have much of an answer other than to say that he was ready now and wanted our girl. In all of this, and all the times he told me he wanted me and our baby, he never once apologized properly. After a very, very long discussion, the lunch wrapped up and my mother-in-law stood by what she had said about my husband not being welcomed. He asked again if he could come home with me, and I told him that it was my house. I owned the house before we married, and it was going to be a safe space for me. That is to say, he is not welcome. As far as I know, he's staying at some hotel. Finally, he was served divorce papers at work on Friday. My bestie's husband drafted them earlier, but I wanted to wait until I had thought it all through. I received a few missed calls and crying voicemails asking if I was really throwing away our family, but I did not respond. He even took a crying selfie sitting in his car, which my bestie laughed at quite a bit. My mother-in-law called me when she heard and told me that I'm making the right decision. She said she never wanted my marriage to end this way or for her son to be so callous, but she said she's here for my baby and I, and that we will always be family. She even tried to apologize on my husband's behalf, but I told her that was not necessary. At the end of the day, his actions are his to own. My best friend has been around all weekend, and we went baby clothes shopping for a little bit of sunshine in all of this. She has been such a rock, and her husband has helped so much with the process. I don't know what'll happen next, but I feel much calmer and like I'm making the right decision. I'll update again if anything major or exciting happens, but for now, I just want to get through all of this and hopefully come out with a beautiful baby girl. Wish us luck. It is really nice to see a mother-in-law that's actually really fucking awesome compared to what all we were dealing with yesterday. But even if this was a moment of weakness, anxiety, and insecurity, I think the biggest thing for me is there was no attempt to apologize. There was no attempt to make amends. It was just, well, I'm going to be here now. No apology for how he made her feel that night. No attempt to reconcile beyond, I'm just going to be better in the future. Not even paying mind or attention to what he had done to his wife before just walking out and going MIA. I know anxiety can be a bitch. That doesn't excuse what he had done, and it definitely doesn't excuse the fact that he made no attempt to do any right by his actions. He let a shitty situation that happened to his friend dictate a decision on the fact of him no longer apparently wanting a child and being afraid to have a child, and him believing that after 7 years of being married to his wife, that this was definitely some way to baby trap him, despite it being planned or wanted for that matter. I remember a few months ago we had a post that involved a husband asking for the paternity test and how the situation just spiraled into a divorce because of that question. And I remember voicing my concerns of my own personal anxiety and how I can sympathize with it. But thankfully there were a lot of comments that not only helped put my mind at ease, but helped me also understand the other side of the coin in that situation, and I appreciate that. But as someone who also has severe anxiety, I can understand the fear, but I cannot understand the actions taken because of that fear. You can be spooked and just have these horrifically intrusive thoughts running through your head that have no basis in reality, but your brain is justifying them. Justifying the way it eats at you and chews at you and makes you stay awake at night. So I understand the irrational anxiety behind it, but I definitely do not understand the decision that he made. Rather than just sitting down and talking with his partner of like, hey, I just want to double check this because my brain's being dumb, he went MIA and got his brother involved to send a nasty text message to his wife and just refused to apologize for the way that he had treated his wife. And that's where any sympathy or empathy that I might have towards the husband ends, is the decisions he made based upon his anxiety. Having fears are fine. It's what makes us human. It's how we act and react to them. It's the decisions we make that might harm others in the path that matter. And it's because of that I 100% understand why she wants that divorce. But of course, I'd love to hear what you all think. Hey, welcome to the outro. Don't forget this whole thing is basically brought to you by GamerSupps. If you like caffeine, then I can't recommend GamerSupps enough. Use code OZ at checkout to support the channel. And I do actually use this product. It's replaced all other sources of caffeine for me because I feel good. It doesn't have any of that extra stuff that a pre-workout blend might have. It's with a couple of the extra things to make it so you don't crash as hard. It's good. I like it. Personally, if you really want a good flavor, try the Soda Pressing Pear or even the Dragon Fruit Punch. Those two are my personal favorites right now.